And we're back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks crossover with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. And don't forget, you can catch every D-backs and Padres pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and either search up Diamondbacks or Padres. Now, Javi, as we do every week, we're going to be doing another draft. And considering we just did 15 minutes on the Angels, the duration of this draft is not looking too good. We always have to decide on the fly. How many picks do we want to do? 8 to 10? 8 to 10? How many are we feeling right now?
Since we've gone so long on Ohtani, maybe a little bit less. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. We'll go with the flow.
We'll go
You know what I
with
mean?
the
As long as it's even and we both got equal amount of picks, I think we go with the flow.
because
That's what I think.
there's one contract that I need to get as my last pick in this
Okay.
deal. So we'll definitely go with the flow and decide. So you always go with tail. So we'll make level 1 here, the tail side. So I'm gonna flip it because I don't know where my quarters are at. Boop. Level 1. Look at Javier Reyes with the first pick in the draft for what seems like forever ago. So Javi, how you gonna start us off today?
I'm going to start us off by betraying my kind.
Oh, whoa, what does that mean?
Oh yeah. Get it. Let's end it at that. No, nobody, please, nobody like take that part out of context. What I mean by that is I often have said that I will support any Puerto Rican player,
Uh-oh.
no matter what. I have to. You saw me during the World Baseball Classic. I was tweeting up a storm. Then it ended very sadly, of course, with Edwin Diaz injury. And this guy was really fun for a long time. I mean, you can still see him posted like highlights every now and then because he was really exciting because he played the game differently. And he was genuinely at one point like a very good player, despite some of the obvious flaws in his game. But unfortunately, the obvious flaws took over, and he is not just a bad player, Millard.
Mhm.
He's entered the meme tier.
Oh God.
Detroit Tigers,
Ooh.
Mr. Javi Baez,
Whew.
first overall pick. Look, there's about a bajillion different directions I could go into with explaining my selection. I could just end it by saying he's bad. But I think it's more than that. I think it's that the Tigers have been rebuilding so long. And for you to give out that deal to, I don't mind teams that were interested in Baez. I don't. Incredible power skills, really a solid defender at a premium position. And you said, maybe we can tinker with this guy because all the talent is there. I think we both agree on that. He's had great seasons before. He's had 6-win seasons. He's had a 5-win season. I think he finished like top 5 in MVP once.
Second.
But he finished second?
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez, I mean, it's just, but for you to see the developments with him and decide after we've been rebuilding for so long that you wanted this to be your free agent and you didn't go with someone like I know he wasn't the same class, but like a Dansby Swanson type, where it's like this guy's upside might not be as crazy as everybody, but I just feel kind of he's steady, and he's been steady for the Cubs this year. And instead, you took a chance on a really risky free agent, Javi Baez and Millard. When you look at the numbers, it's deadly, and he's in the meme tier because a lot of people have seen it before. But he comes out there. If you look up Javi Baez swing on YouTube, you will see. It's rough. Pitching Ninja makes fun of him, saying, I genuinely think that if you did a pitch out, i.e. for people who don't know, like when you're a runner stealing a base or you think you just throw it out. That way they get a good throw on it. What, you think people know that? And I'm just
I was going to say the younger generation. They might not know.
Yeah, they might not know this old-fashioned
back with the intentional walk when you really had to throw those pitches.
Oh, yeah.
Javi Baez might be swinging at those. Yeah.
It's amazing. Like he might be swinging at those, and it's sad that it's not an exaggeration. Over the 2 years with the Tigers, his first year, which was the worst case scenario, people thought this was the worst case scenario. He had an 88 WRC plus, only a 291 WOBA. He did hit 17 home runs, which is cool, I guess. And his strikeout rate was actually lower. That's what's crazy, Millard. He actually lowered his strikeout rate just a tad from the astronomical highs it was at one point, right? 24.9% last year. And he lowered it again this year, 22.9. Isn't that crazy? Like if I just told you those two things, someone would be like, oh my God, did they figure out how to get him back to at least somewhat of his MVP form? Instead, he's got a 59 WRC plus. His offensive rating, according to Fangraphs stat, is negative 21. He has a 0.8 F4 on there. I just, it's sad. It's sad to watch, and it must not be fun being Javi Baez in Detroit right now because I'd be frustrated watching this guy and he seems to show zero, absolutely zero interest in improving around the areas that he struggles in. And it
Yeah.
stinks. His contract is enormous. It is, I had it right in front of me before.
He's
Let me
like
just make sure.
20.
6 years, 140.
Yeah. He's like mid
I
20s
mean,
basically till age 34.
there are other guys that will pick that the numbers I think are worse in terms
Mhm.
of like the overall cost. But I'm taking into account the fact that what I mentioned before with the fact that the Tigers chose this as their guy, a risky free agent, and the fact that he's just a genuinely awful negative player. I feel bad. I'm feeling bad tonight for teams. But
Yeah.
Javi Baez is my first pick.
Yeah, I think you could stop the analysis at bad baseball player because I think that's just what Javi Bias has turned into. He just hasn't looked good for a couple seasons now. He's going to be making the mid 20s till 2027. I think he was definitely worthy of the number one pick. He was a tier one worst contract for me on my big board. So not mad at all to see him go number one in this draft because basically my criteria when I was doing this, like ranking all the worst contracts, it was how many years remaining do you have on the contract? How many
Hmm.
years have you actually
Yeah.
played so far on the contract, and how have you played on the contract so far? The value of the deal total, like how, annually, how much are you making? The
Mhm.
age of the player, and how is the player trending? Like, what direction are they like still kind of plateau in their career? Are they starting to hit the decline? Are they still in the upward trajectory? So that was kind of like the five criteria I have, and I'm not gonna lie. The my first pick I'm going to make right now is not going to make me feel good, Javi. I don't want to take this guy because technically, this guy's not even a major leaguer anymore, but he's still going to be getting
Oof.
paid the rest of his contract because he signed probably the worst contract we might have ever seen back in 2019, right after winning the World Series for the Washington
Mm.
Nationals. Steven Strasburg, who, yes,
Yeah.
he's only made, if you could believe this, I have the number written down. I think 7 starts since he won the World Series back in
Jesus.
2019. It's not just the injuries. It's the fact that he still owed 105 million, I think, over the next 3 years. And after those next 3 years, starting 2027, he gets 26 a year for the next 3 years after that. So they're going to be paying Strasburg a lot of money to not play over the next few years. And he already was not playing the last few years and getting paid a lot of money. Steven Strasburg was one of the best when he was right, crucial in that postseason run for the Washington Nationals. And it's not even really his fault. I mean, I don't know how much you put blame on someone for injuries and stuff like that. Yes, some of it could be training, but it wasn't really his fault. It wasn't like Steven Strasburg had 30 starts a year and just sucked. He just never could stay healthy. And I feel kind of bad for drafting a guy who just retired, but considering he still has many years remaining
Yeah.
as one of the highest paid players in baseball and the last few years of that deal, he hasn't played at all. Essentially, I'm going to take Steven Strasburg with my first pick.
For a second, I thought you were going to say Bobby Bonilla, but
Okay. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, he's still up here.
look, I think that he was my other potential top pick. The only reason I didn't take him was because the vibes were good
Mhm.
when they did give the contract, in the
Yeah, they
sense
were.
that I don't think there's any Nationals fan who's that upset. I think there's a lot of Nationals fans that are just sad, right? Because, like you said, when he was right, he was amazing. I still remember his first major league start, getting covered on Sports Center as
It
like
was
the top
huge.
story. It was huge. And I know that Harper kind of like came in and was like even bigger. And I think that's why people might have forgot. But like this guy was like the chosen
Yeah, it
one.
was
He was
actually
on like,
legit the coverage he got. It was
yeah,
insane.
it was insane. Like, and I remember watching it, and they were like, "Here's the." It was like a cover story for ESPN. Can you imagine a covers guy who's a pitching prospect getting covered like that right now? Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, we'll cover some 16-year-old in high school for the NBA. Like, we'll cover Bronny James before we do that, right?
Yeah.
But
Who's
like,
even like the last pitching prospect to like be
it's
talked
a great
about like that,
question.
where it's like everyone's
Great
watching his
question.
debut and then we like talk about on Sports Center the next day. Like
That's a great
I don't
question.
even know, to be
I
honest.
can't think of one. I can't. I
Like maybe
genuinely
like
can't think of
Jose
one.
Fernandez potentially. Like
Maybe a little bit there. He's up there, and he started gaining popularity fast. I got to think about that. That's a good
yeah.
one though. But yeah, man, just really rough all the way around. And the only other reason I didn't take is because at least he did help them win the World Series. I
Mhm.
know that he didn't help them win the World Series when they signed him,
Mm-mm.
so it was kind of a like, we're paying you. It's like no one had an issue. They're like, will this bite us in the butt? Probably. This guy is always hurt, but you know, we won the World Series. Who cares? You know what I mean? I think that's like kind of the vibe for it. So that's the only reason I didn't pick it first overall. But I mean, it's an
Yeah.
excellent choice. It's an
Like you said,
excellent
it's
choice.
more of a sad contract than a bad contract.
Yeah, yeah. It's sad. It makes you
For
sad.
Strasburg. Who you got to follow up after that though? I think
Oh
I might
man.
know where you're going. Let's see if you take the guy I would take here.
Let's see if I pick it. So yes, in terms of if you take into account also the remaining years, years. I
Mhm.
think that's a great point. I think that someone like, Miguel Cabrera would be someone that you could select because 8 years, what was it, like 8 years? I have it right in front of me. Let me find it real quick. Miguel Cabrera, where are you, my dude?
Yeah, 'cause he
He's
signed that
still,
deal back in, like, 2016.
yeah, 8 years, 248 is pretty heinous
Mhm.
considering that he's been quite bad for the
The
last
whole
8 years.
time. Yeah,
Like
like,
the whole time, he had
the
like
whole
two
deal.
years. I think the 2 years he's been good, and then after that he fell apart. But the
Yeah.
vibes are still good, and he's the least of the Tigers' problems.
It's the
And
last
I
year
think there's
too.
only 1 year. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
only 1 year left. It's about done. Um, I'm gonna roast the Rockies. You
Oh,
know,
okay, okay, okay.
I'm gonna roast the Rockies.
I'm
Chris
cool with
Bryant.
that.
Uh,
I don't
and
mind it.
look, when this happened, I just want to say that for the record, it was hilarious, and I very much love the Rockies for this. I love that the same team that decided we need to cut payroll and get rid of a guy who is probably going to the Hall of Fame and Nolan Arenado, unless something ridiculous happens and he has an Andrew Jones type second half career fall off, right? Unless
Mhm.
that happens, he's going to the Hall of Fame probably. I know Padres fans might not like to hear that, but he's a very good third baseman,
Very
despite the
good.
one we have.
He's a stud.
Um, yeah, he's a stud. Uh, my thing is just like for you to trade that guy as a salary dump, not even a salary dump because you're also paying the Cardinals
Yeah,
part of
that's
his salary,
the dumbest
and
thing in
then
baseball.
it's so dumb. And then on top of that, you didn't get great prospects. And then the very next year, you sign a player who is not nearly as good as Nolan Arenado. Maybe in his prime. I mean, Chris Bryant was an incredible player. Like I think people might forget. Like first three
Yeah,
years, he had a
MVP.
6.1 win above replacement, 7.9 wins above replacement, and then 7. That's like one of the
Yeah.
great like starts for any player we've seen in this century
Yeah,
for the first 3 years. And then he was
fir
just okay after that.
yeah,
Uh,
first 2 years, rookie of the year, then MVP back to back.
Exact. Like that's just insane. It just doesn't happen all that much. And then he started falling off, and I think that people expected it, but still the numbers were still good. I remember drafting him in fantasy in 2021. Remember the infamous when he gets traded to the Giants, right? Like he had a pretty good stretch with them, that crazy 100 win Giants team. And the Rockies, for some reason, despite not wanting to pay Arenado anymore, they want to pay Chris Bryant, a lesser player, and for more. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make any sense. So that's part of why I'm picking it because of the Rockies' incompetence. And it's sad to see him. Like last year, in the very few games he played, he was effective, at least at the plate, but he can't really field anymore. He hasn't been able to field all that excellently for a while, but now it's like he really can't. And, like I said, last year in shortened time, 306, 376, 475 slash line, pretty good. Granted, cores helps, but even still, the 125 WRC plus, it wasn't all luck or anything like that, or cores. This year, man, 251, 338, 379 slugging. That's the key. The power's gone.
Yeah.
And that's because of injuries and stuff, but it's rough. It's rough to see it. And I understand, like, if a team wanted to sign Chris Bryant, but given all the injuries and given that you just gave up on Arenado, it's just baseball malpractice for you to decide, just kidding, we'll actually go pay this guy even more. And it's sad to see 84 WRC plus this year. I mean, he's dreadful. Just the power is gone. I don't want to say that he's not going to have like a couple good years. I would be very surprised if he at least doesn't have like a solid, decent year at some point. Maybe figures something out. He starts rehabbing or whatever. That's cool. But man, really rough contract for the Rockies, who should have been hitting full rebuild. They should have been selling all their players for at least good stuff, unlike they did with Arenado, and they didn't. So they're
Yeah.
stuck with him.
Yeah, because just like the Artie Moreno thing, the decision
Mhm.
making just makes no sense. So, like you laid out,
Yeah.
why are you going to trade Nolan Arenado, let Trevor Story walk, act like you're in this whole rebuild, saying you're nowhere near the playoffs, and then the
Exactly.
very next offseason sign Chris Bryant and say, you know what, it's championship or bust. We're on the precipice of a World Series. It's like your actions are not leading or are not matching up with what you're telling your fan base, and it just makes absolutely no sense. Another franchise that just a little bit of a joke. I mean, if you go look at Bud Black's managerial record, he has like one or two winning seasons in 18 years with the Colorado Rockies. I think he has one season with at least 90 wins under his belt. Like Bud Black is one of the longest tenured managers. I think the longest tenured manager in Major League Baseball, with probably the worst winning resume at the same time. And Chris Bryant's another guy. Like we're going to talk about a lot of guys today that are like, they're not bad, but they just can't stay healthy. And Chris Bryant's another guy who hasn't been able to stay healthy in a short tenure with the Colorado Rockies. And like you said, being Coors Field, it's weird to see that lack of power just disappear from his game, because he was, a power guy back in the day. He was a 30 kind of guy, 25, 30 home runs. And now he's like, where has it gone? More of a 15 home run guy, if he can even play 120 games. So Weird what's happened to Chris Bryant. Weird that the Colorado Rockies decided to sign him. But hey,
Yeah.
bad franchise are going to do what bad franchises do. But I'm surprised you didn't take this guy who I'm going to draft next. So we just briefly mentioned him earlier in the podcast.
I think I know who it's going to be.
Yes, that's right. As a teammate of Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, because this guy has been absolutely terrible during his I think he signed in 2020, which is also 2020. He played as many games in 2020 basically as any other season he's played with the Angels, because he played 52 games in 2020. His career high so far with the Angels in a single season is 58. I'm talking about Anthony Rendon, who had just been perpetually hurt, or he's fighting fans on the sidelines. Like, Anthony Rendon has been bad when he's been healthy. He hasn't been a productive player. And then when he's been not healthy, he's just been unproductive in the clubhouse, on the sidelines. Hasn't felt like a very good vibe guy overall. And it's like, we talk about the Angels not spending money. Well, they actually did spend money on Anthony Rendon. They actually said, you know what? We're going to get another superstar in our lineup to help out the Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, because we don't need a pitcher. We don't need a rotation. What we need is more offense, because having Mike Trout and Ohtani means you're not going to have any offense for your team. So we got to go get another offensive player. So they're paying Rendon $38 a year for the next 3 seasons, and for a guy who can't stay healthy, and when he is healthy has been absolutely terrible. Bad vibes guy. I am not in on Anthony Rendon at all, and it's one of the worst contracts in baseball right now.
Yeah, I mean, he stinks. The highlight of his Angels tenure has literally been that altercation with the fan. He's been dreadful, and it's just like you said with Art Moreno, bad. I don't really have much else to add on. The guy is terrible, and it stinks that like the Angels at least have tried to sign some stars, like I mentioned at the top with Upton and your Hamilton, and then every time they get them, they stink. So it's just like,
but like the personality of some of these guys they sign too, like the Rendons and like the Josh Hamiltons and the CJ Wilsons, like they're not getting like the best clubhouse guys. It feels like not the best vibe guys typically. And it's like, if you're going to try build a winning culture with the Ohtanis, who always has a smile on his face, I feel like the baseball energy has been drained out of Mike Trout over the last few years. Like, if you want to build a positive culture, why not sign some positive guys for that clubhouse? Javi and I will continue this draft, but before we do that, a quick message from our sponsor. And we're back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks crossover with Locked On Padres. Don't forget to catch every D-backs and Padres pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and search up Diamondbacks. Now, with the number 5th pick in this draft, Javier Reyes, who are you going to take?
The number 5th pick. I like the way you said that.
Thank you.
The number 5th pick, I'm going to take. It's time to roast the team that we all like making fun of. Is it not? Only reason I didn't do it is because I thought the trade was fine, because they didn't have to give up anything. But holy dear God, we're not talking about that. And I know that, like, what I just said there, that the trade, like, that's a different discussion. You know what I mean? But just if we're talking about contracts, easily the worst. I actually think it's worse than some of the guys we've already drafted.
Okay.
It's the man formerly known as Mike.
Oh, no.
Mike Stanton, formerly. It's Giancarlo Stanton of the New York Yankees, DH extraordinaire. I mean, Millard, where do I start? I mean, this guy, first of all, it's hilarious what the Yankees do. We could go on and on about how poorly the Yankees have been constructed. But what really stinks isn't necessarily Stanton's production. He's been okay. Obviously, he was astronomical the year that he won the MVP and he hit 59 home runs. And I don't think that it was smart that people thought he would be able to keep that up. But he had a pretty good year the first year with the Yankees. 4.2 wins above replacement, hit 38 home runs, stayed relatively healthy. He played 158 games his first season with the Yankees. Like, he was a productive player. He was really good. And then the next year got hurt, only played 18. Next year after that, in 2020, he played 23, which was about, even in a shortened season, he couldn't stay healthy. Like, it's just incredible stuff. And then in 2021, missed some games, but was productive. 139 WRC plus. He hit 35 homers, got really hot at the end, right? Remember the wild card game against the Red Sox? He almost single-handedly won it. But then 2022, 116 WRC plus, started to fall off and had to be used basically exclusively as a DH. And now, oh boy, it's looking rough. 95 for WRC plus. He has 19 home runs. He's only played in 80 games. He can't play defense anymore. Obviously, they use him as a DH, and he's still managing to get hurt. But the kicker, oh man! And if my dad's listening to this podcast, hi dad, just cover your ears, because they still have to pay this man
Mhm.
until after the 2027 season. That's why I'm drafting him, because I do think that it's like not that crazy that they took a chance on him, especially since they have to give up much. But the contract itself, so I'm not blaming the Yankees for the contract because it's not theirs. Um, but holy dear God, I mean, it's bad. If he's already starting to decline, he can't hit those sliders at all. If it's getting worse than this, I don't want to. I don't think it's over. I still think he's really talented, and the power is still about as good as anyone out there. Just the hard hit stuff. Whew, that long, and he can't hold up with his body staying healthy. We might have like a. I know this sounds crazy, but we might have like ourselves a Ken Griffey Jr. his final year season at some point. You know what I'm talking? I'm talking like a -2 wins above replacement, only plays DH, can't hit the. I'm just saying, guys, and that won't happen next year. But I'm saying, like at the end of this, for those who don't know, Ken Griffey Jr. has one of the worst like single seasons in the history of baseball. His last year, it's not his fault. He was old and he was washed out, but like he's infamous for it. Keep an eye on it. It might get to that point.
And at the time that the Yankees acquired him, I think we all forget, like, we were like, oh my God, because Derek Jeter had just got hired to be like the executive for the Marlins at the time. We are like, oh my God, look at Derek Jeter just setting the Yankees, his former favorite team, the best player in Major League Baseball, because Stan was coming off the MVP at the time. And like you laid out there, Javi, the biggest issue with Stan probably the last few years, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Like you said, that 2020 season wasn't able to stay healthy. And even if you don't count that season, has only reached 110 games once in the last 4 seasons. So this is a guy, like, if you look at the numbers, he's still one of the best power output guys in Major League Baseball. Like, he has 19 home runs in 80 games this year. He's going to hit you. If he plays 130 games a year, he's still going to hit you 30 or 40 bombs. The issue is, can he even reach 130 games? Because at this point, if you get 110, 115 games of healthy Mike Stan, you would feel pretty happy about that. But like you said, going to be paying him until 2027, a few more years at that number with his skills declining, can't really do anything outside of hit home runs. Not the best guy you want to build around going forward. And considering the state that the Yankees are in, we all love Aaron Judge. He's not going to be in this draft, maybe in a few more years, but the rest of the roster, like, they cut Josh Donaldson today. Who else on that team outside like a Volpe, I guess, are you even excited about for the future? Stan's not one of them. He's going to be a part of the future considering he's locked up for the next few seasons. Next up for me, there's a few guys I could go here because it depends how many picks we want to do. So it depends how spicy I want to get. I think I'm going to go a little bit against the grain here just because I want to get a little bias in this draft, as we always do. Next up off the board, I'm actually taking another Washington National. Crazy 2 Nationals getting drafted in this draft. I'm taking Patrick Corbin, who, if you're looking at remaining contract left, there's not a lot. You don't have to pay Patrick Corbin a lot longer. He only has like 1 final year left on his deal. Now, the kicker is Patrick Corbin was making like $25 million a year the last 6 years. But for some reason, this final year that Patrick Corbin has coming up, he's making $35 million in the final year of his contract. I have absolutely no reason why. I don't know why the Nationals are like, that final season, we're just going to jack it up for $10 million for you, buddy. Don't know why they did that. And then if you just look at the year-by-year ERA,
I know it's really great. It's amazing.
Like, you can say the worst pitcher in baseball. Like, it's either between him or Madison Bumgarner, who's been the worst pitcher in baseball the last like few seasons. It's absolutely
your boy,
my boy, Mad Bum. So even though Patrick Corbin is probably not the biggest name that we're going to draft today, and considering he only has 1 year left on his deal, maybe there's better options on the board. But considering he's been bad the entire length of his contract, and then all of a sudden he's getting this major spike the final year of his deal, I just think I need to get a former D back in this draft before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, Corbin, what's with you guys and having all your pitchers? Like, you guys have such a funny pitcher history. Like, seriously, it's Corbin who had he had like a couple of good seasons with the D-backs, and then he moves on, and then he helps the Nationals win, and then he's just getting paid a lot, and it's just terrible. It's if you want to see home runs, there you go. Then you had Madison Bumgarner, who gets signed and just stinks immediately, and then you formerly had Robbie Ray, who you gave up for nothing, and then the D-backs are. It's like they give up on like the pitchers, like, to, I don't know, it's just really weird. They're close. to
They're close.
figuring out pitching. You know what I mean? Like they're close. Now what you have to do, okay, so you don't want to pay someone like Bumgarner.
Mhm.
You like people like Corbin, but you don't want to pay them, at that time. You
Yeah.
you like okay, Robbie Ray, don't trade them for nothing though. Like they're almost there. They're gonna have
Yeah.
someone.
With someone like
But like
Greinke, we're like $200 million for you, Zach Greinke. Come on down. Here you go. And it's like I don't
exactly,
know. I don't know what their
exactly.
philosophy is when it comes to this stuff.
They're very weird on pitching. It's like their Achilles heel. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Patrick Corbin's pretty bad, even though it's not for too much longer. You're
Yeah.
right. The spike in the last year is kind of hilarious in a
It's
lot of ways.
crazy. I'm like, wait, 24 and then 35 out of nowhere. It's like, who's his agent? That man needs to be representing all Major League Baseball players.
Oh man, it's great. Now we're getting at the level, in my opinion, with this next pick of mine, where I don't think these are like contracts that ruin teams. I don't
Yeah.
think. But I think that they are, it's just again something that I find kind of funny.
Let's go 10 deep too. Just FYI. I want to go 10 deep in this draft, Javi. That's like 3
Okay,
more picks.
okay.
Just so you know.
Let's 2 more picks. I'm gonna go with DJ LeMahieu of the Yankees
Oh,
next.
whoa, crazy.
Oh yeah, shocking people a little bit. AAV
Yeah.
isn't that bad, only 15 million a year,
Yeah.
and he's been good for them before. Put
Mhm.
up a 177 WRC plus in 2020, nearly won himself the MVP that year. And the first year with the Yankees, he was a revelation. 5.9 F4, 136 at WRC plus, spraying the ball all over the place. However, it is very obvious that 2019 season was an anomaly and probably a product of the juiced ball that we started seeing a little bit more from like 2017 to 2020, around then, right? It's why a lot of guys' stats were inflated. And LeMahieu's a great example. He's never really been a power hitter. His max home runs before that 1 year, he hit 15 in Colorado. And then every year before that was like 8, 11, 6, 5. And some of those years in Colorado where he hit for a high average, his WRC plus was bad. Basically to show you guys that like he was a Coors Field merchant for a good portion of his career. This is not an Arenado who would be good anywhere, right? So that was LeMahieu, and the Yankees extended him 6 years, 90 million. For me, it's the years. And his first year after that contract, 102 WRC plus, he was pretty miserable. Again, the slash line doesn't look terrible until you get to the slugging. There's just no power there. And I know the juice ball was a big part of it, but for a utility infielder who all of his WRC plus numbers, his batted ball skills, and the juiced ball era just kind of shows you that this isn't like he wasn't going to keep this up, but they extended him anyway. Because Brian Cashman is something. This year, again, not the worst player we've drafted by far. Not the worst player in the league by far. But he's not doing anything for you defensively, and he's only getting worse. His strikeout rate is the highest of his career, 22.4%. That's like a nearly 8% increase. He's rough, and he's still got until 2026.
Ooh. I don't know if
Not
yeah. I feel like after having back-to-back top 4 MVP finishes, maybe you didn't have to give him the years, but you definitely had to pay a DJ, because I think just every Yankees fan just considered DJ like the holy grail after coming over from Colorado, putting up those 2 monster seasons. It just felt like, driving around the East Coast, listening to like Michael K show. It just felt like every Yankees fan was in on DJ LeMahieu. And
yeah, they were.
He felt like the franchise star at that point, or so I felt like the Yankees fans. I felt like Brian Cashman had to do it, because I felt like Yankees fans would have rioted if he didn't. DJ LeMahieu, didn't have him on my short list here of top 20 guys, probably on my longer list. But I don't hate it, because I always love bashing on the Yankees when we can. And like you said, it is not a good deal. By the definition of what we're doing today in this draft, it is not a good contract. So not too mad. It just kind of puts me a little bit in a bind here, because now I have to make some tough decisions with who I want to draft the rest, because there's like 3 guys I really want to get in, and there's only 2 picks left. So we're going to have to make some tough cuts. And there's one guy I have to come away with. But I'm going to be drafting him with the final pick, just because it'll add, the most spice and intrigue level. So next up, I'm going to draft. You know what? Let's get on the sad boy franchise with our guy Bryce Patrick, because no one likes to complain and cry and whine more for a team that's been in first place for like 9 months than a Bryce Patrick. Yeah, the team has struggled a little bit, Bryce, but I don't want to hear you in my DMs every day crying when your team has the best run differential in the American League. Okay, the Rangers are going to be just fine with the 95 wins and the best wild card spot, or the second best wild card spot. Like, you're okay, Bryce. You're not gonna miss the playoffs here, buddy. Okay, if you don't win the division. So I'm actually going to have to take, I almost lost my train of thought there, but Jacob deGrom from the Texas Rangers, who a lot of people had qualms with at the time of the contract.
Okay.
And
yeah.
for me, I've tried to stay away from drafting guys in the first year of the major of their major deal. So I try to stay away from the Bogarts and the Machado, to be honest, because it's the first year. Like,
yeah.
maybe you struggled in the first year, but that doesn't mean the rest of your contract is going to be bad. So I try not to draft too many first.
Marcus Semien being a great example.
Yeah, Marcus Semien. But a guy like Jacob deGrom, who we saw the red flags prior to the contract being signed, the fact that this season already has kind of been a disaster, and it's not like he's going to be getting any younger. He's 34, 35 years old, and it's not like he's just like a top 20 highest paid player. Like, he's on the 4th highest average annual salary, 5 years, 185. deGrom is getting paid a massive number. And for a guy who we've seen basically the last 3 to 4 years can't really pitch more than like 10 to 15 starts in a season, we all still think deGrom is arguably the best pitcher in baseball when he's healthy. The only issue is that comes like once every 3 months if you're lucky, and it's usually not during the postseason.
Yeah, I made that joke about how I think he's feeling the after effects of One for All for all my Hero Academia fans out there.
Hey.
Like, he used 100%. This is a guy who literally at one point was driving in more runs himself as a pitcher than allowing them. Like, he's an absolute freak, but he's been hurt. And his conference talking about getting hurt was rough to watch too. The fact that he's probably going to be out for the majority of next year as well. Not great. It's possible he comes back and can be effective, but another Tommy John, that's rough. So yeah, it's a really rough contract, especially when you take into account we knew all this stuff beforehand. Rangers took a risk. Now, granted, their other pitching contracts turned out great, right? Like, they didn't just go all in on one area. Like John Gray, Eovaldi, like that's turned out well. So they've bounced back from it pretty well, but it is unfortunate and it's sad to see.
Fun
my next pick, man.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Real quick, fun fact, wore My Hero Academia shirt on yesterday's stream on Locked On Diamondbacks. So, boom, for any anime listeners out there, if you just want to, I don't know.
Do I have to wear my Hero shirt next week?
Should we do an anime draft?
I do.
Comparing teams to anime players or shows? I don't know.
Put it down. Put it down. Write it down. Keep it track, man. Ideas. Get on that spreadsheet.
All right. How are you wrapping up your draft, Javi?
This is tough. Because I could go with a meme. There's one player that you could go with, but we're not gonna get into him for obvious reasons. He's on the Rays.
Yeah. I knew
that one
immediately.
Yeah, you knew immediately who I was talking about. So that one kind of is just a totally different beast altogether.
We won't touch that one.
Do I go with the meme? I'm gonna go with the meme. I can't do 2 Puerto Ricans. Screw it.
Okay. Not your
I'm going with Andrew Benintendi with my last pick. And you might be shocked by that because the contract is that bad. 5 years, 75. Who cares? The reason I'm going for this, just to wrap up the draft, is because that is the largest contract given in White Sox history.
It's crazy.
That is why. He's not that great of a player. 95 WRC plus. He's not a killer. Maybe he can get better. 122 last year. WRC plus. Like, he has good bat to ball skills. There's the possibility that he has a good year sprinkled in somewhere. But the fact that this is the only time the White Sox have ever like truly paid someone, I feel like this contract represents the franchise more than the player. And that's why I'm taking it. I just think that that's like patently absurd. Like, for this to be the highest paid player they've ever had. I just think that's insane. That's insane, that 5 years, 75. So that's why, for everybody who wants to complain about the shortcomings of the NBA or other sports leagues, agreed. They can be ridiculous. I don't like getting drama about, I don't like LeBron versus Jordan debates every 5 seconds. I will take that any day of the week instead of a Chicago-based team that I've just been alerted to that this is the best contract they've ever given. And then people want to tell me that spending money isn't how you win. It is. I hate to break it to you guys. You need to spend money. Not Padres level necessarily. I'm not saying that for everybody who starts coming at me. I'm just saying in general, like, you want to know why the White Sox aren't good? Because you have cheapskates like Jerry Reinsdorf. That's why. So that's what I'm taking with my last pick.
Yeah, if you're going to spend money, try to do it on at least quality major leaguers. I mean, Benintendi is fine. He's probably like a $7 million a year guy, if that. And it's like giving him the highest contract. Just the fact that 15 a year is that, just that fact. It's just that fact that's the highest ever. Not just to Benintendi, but 15 a year is the highest contract you've ever handed out to a free agent. Like, that's not that much money. That's like we're doing this draft. That's like DJ LeMahieu money, who is, of course, on one of the worst contracts in Major League Baseball. But it's like people of that ilk, the Jameson, Tyone, like, it's not, you're not getting a superstar player for that kind of money. And the fact that they never went over that to any free agent. That lets you know that they're not out there getting quality major leaguers once they hit the offseason. So not surprised to see that the best player that they ever signed in the free agent market is Andrew Benintendi on that kind of deal. So I'm not too mad that you wrapped up your draft for Benintendi. I did have a little look of him for my longer list here. He didn't crack my top 20, but we had a cup of coffee. We discussed it out. We negotiated, but he didn't make my final list here. So this is where we get spicy here in the final pick, hobby, because I'm going to take a guy here. Let me find my notes because I put next to him. I ranked the top 10 and then I put next to this guy. Has to be my final pick in the draft just for the fun of it, because this guy, if you could believe it, he's making 37 a year until 2030, age 38. This is someone that since 2017, if we don't count 2020, these are his game totals: 114, 140, okay, 134, but then 36, 119, and is going to play under 100 this season. This guy, when he's healthy, he's like Jacob deGrom as a position player. He's one of the best. Some people will tell you he's the best guy we've ever seen. But at some point, if you're going to play under 100 games every single season and be top 3 in average salary, listen, this is not a bit or anything, but you have to do it because he's got like 8 more years as the highest paid player in Major League Baseball. I have to do it. I don't want to because he's great when he's healthy. The fact is he's not healthy anymore, entering the Jacob deGrom tier as a position player. I have to go with who, Javi? Mike Trout of the LA Angels. And this is not because,
That's
again,
unbelievable.
this is not because he's a bad player. This is not because he's a bad player. But he's going till 2030. What year is it? 2023. This is someone the last 3 seasons we've seen cannot stay healthy. If you tell me Mike Trout's going to play 140, 150 games for the next 5 years, he will be worth a contract. The issue is, I think he could be entering that Giancarlo Stanton tier, at least in terms of health, not in terms of production. Because in terms of production, he's still a freaking MVP level player. But in terms of actual health, I am concerned of what the next 7 years could look like for Mike Trout, considering the last 4 to 5 years hasn't been that healthy, despite it being very productive when he has been on the field.
You're hilarious. You just never change. Never change. I knew it was coming and I couldn't stop it.
I had to. When I dropped the first years, I had to.
I can't believe it. Yeah, man. And just to wrap up, I guess like just some other
throw some honorable mentions. Yeah.
I was thinking of Carlos Correa.
Yeah,
didn't do it because it would be my second Puerto Rican drafted and I couldn't allow that. The reason though to consider is all those injury rumblings and the reason that the Giants and Mets didn't sign him. If the Twins went ahead and did it anyway, and he might be like really cooked because of whatever weird like leg injuries he has, that's why he could be the worst. I mean, he's been genuinely pretty atrocious this year. He was good last year. He was great last year, but this year he's been really bad. That's one.
And he's making like over 32 a year to like 2028.
Really rough on their part. Especially if I'm not picking Bogarts of the Padres because Bogarts is the first year. Yeah, the reason Correa almost did is because of that injury, which makes me think that giving that deal was irresponsible. But that being said, Darvish, there's plenty of Padres that you could argue. Yeah. Didn't do Bogarts because first year. Darvish, though, you giving that to a 36, 37-year-old pitcher? I mean, that's a little reprehensible in a lot of ways. Jake Cronenworth, in terms of the years, he's kind of like our LeMahieu.
Okay.
Where you're like, he's only gotten progressively worse. You know what I mean? He's kind of like our DJ LeMahieu. In terms of the rest of the contracts, though, I don't think they're all terrible. If Robert Suarez is a sticky merchant, then he'll go on there for reliever for the Padres, who got suspended recently. But otherwise, I don't think the Padres, because it's year one in a vacuum, that you can put any of their players on here. At least not yet. If Bogarts is bad again next year or worse, then we can start talking about it. But for now, same thing goes for Machado. Same thing goes for Tatis. I mean, Tatis has still been good. And even same thing still goes for Darvish, assuming he doesn't have like a Tommy John surgery incoming. Then
and at least Darvish is not like an insane number. I thought it was crazy. Yeah. When there was a report at the time, but I actually like looked at the details this week. It's like 15 a year or something around there, like 12 to 15 a year until he's 41.
It's not terrible. It's not crazy.
It's not terrible. It's more about the age that they're paying him to. But in terms of the number annually, it's not that bad. Just a few other honorable mentions that I had. Really wanted to draft Trevor Story in this draft. Mid-20s till 2027. He did not look good for Boston. Coming off the injury this year. Haven't been a big fan of him.
We should have drafted him, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to, but you kept taking, the Ben Tendys and the LeMayus. I was like, I need Mike Trout, and I can't leave the draft without Mike Trout. So Trevor Story was unfortunately on the chopping block for me there. I did think about your other Puerto Rican brother, Francisco Lindor, just because he's good. It's not there yet. He's getting like 34 years till 2031. It's a lot of money.
Watch yourself.
A lot more years.
Yeah, but you better watch yourself. Don't make me do this, man. He's been great. All right.
I know. Great. The great is. I think he's been good. He's been good. The great is. Like, it's okay. It's agree to disagree. Chris Sale, you could have put him on the list.
You better move on. You better move on.
Chris Sale only has 2 more years, though. That's really the only thing. Miggy, like we said, last year of the deal. Carlos Rodon, I mean, it's the first year, but you could have done the Jacob deGrom argument where there was always red flags with injury history and something like that. Christian Yelich, I put down just on my long list. George Springer, long list. Brandon Nimmo, I mean, it's the first year, but I don't know. Is he a 20-a-year guy? I don't think so. I don't think we're at that point where he should be drafted in this just yet. And then one guy that maybe should have been drafted, Jameson Taillon. 18 a year for like the next 3 seasons for Jameson Taillon. He's just not a good major leaguer. I was shocked that he got that deal from the Chicago Cubs. But that wraps up our draft of taking the worst contracts in Major League Baseball. How do you think it went today, Javi?
I think it went pretty good. I mean, there's plenty of others. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of others that we left off that people will probably bring up if they even made it this far into the podcast. Yeah. There might be people who bring up Robbie Ray or people who bring up, Seiya Suzuki, players like that. But, this is for now. We were doing the worst. But I enjoyed it because despite talking about the worst that the sport has to offer, it was still a lot of fun. And as always, I love our drafts.
Yeah. Talk about the worst, but got to record with the best. Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Where can the listeners find you?
At Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. If you only want Padres stuff, go check out at LO_Padres or Locked On Padres on the old YouTube.
Yep, at Creator Thomas 24 for my personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Streaming on all podcasting platforms, and please hit subscribe to both Locked On Diamondbacks and Locked On Padres on YouTube. That ends this podcast. Until next week and another draft. Doses.